Hi, welcome. In today's video, we are going to look at lead sheet notation. We want to talk about what lead sheet notation is. We want to look at some of the most commonly used symbols in lead sheet notation. And finally, we're going to realize two excerpts from some lead sheets, both from the perspective of a pianist and a guitarist. So lead sheet symbols are part of shorthand notation that musicians can use that indicates the harmony that's used in a song without necessarily including the full score. Lead sheets are used by musicians and improvisers in genres as varied as jazz, rock, blues, pop, contemporary Christian, even country music. Now, systems for shorthand notation are not necessarily a new invention. Musicians in the Baroque period used figure bass as a type of shorthand notation. So in today's world of the pop, jazz, rock studio musicians, there are two main systems that are used in a very similar way. One of those being lead sheet notation, and the other common system is the Nashville numbering system. Today our focus is going to be on introducing lead sheet notation and looking at some of the basic symbols that are used in that type of notation. So now let's take a look at the typical format for a lead sheet and the information that would be included for a musician. A lead sheet is going to consist of a single staff, often treble clef, that is going to include the melody of the song, lyrics, if lyrics are part of the song, and chords written above the staff to indicate the harmony. All three of those elements can be seen in this example from the lead sheet of the hymn Amazing Grace. Lead sheet symbols indicate the chord name, the quality of the chord, whether the chord is in root position or an inversion, also alterations to the chord, whether it's an extended chord or whether there are chord tones that are missing, and it can include non-chordal bass notes. Yet the lead sheet does not specify the voicing to be used by the musician or the rhythm that is to be played by the musician. Those are all variables that the musician is able to improvise on as he plays the piece. So I want to pause and take a moment to discuss lead sheets and chord charts and their distinctions. Lead sheets and chord charts are very closely related to each other, and they're both widely used in many modern genres of music. Yet there is a distinction that needs to be made between the two. So in a chord chart, as can be seen in this example of Amazing Grace, we have the lyrics of the song, and the chord changes are written above the lyrics. Yet in a lead sheet of the same song, we also find the lyrics, we find the chords above the lyrics, and we find the melody of the song written out in standard notation. So that distinction between the two needs to be made so that we can use the correct terminology when it comes to lead sheets versus chord charts. So let's take a moment now and look at some of the common lead sheet symbols that are used in lead sheet notation to indicate various chords. Since today's lesson is an introductory study of lead sheet notation, let's limit our examples to triads and root position seventh chords. Unfortunately, there is no standard in lead sheet symbols, so I've included variations of the chords that you would most commonly see on lead sheets. Let's begin with triads and look at the root position triads. So these are the symbols that would typically be used to indicate a root position C major chord, C minor chord, C diminished chord, and C augmented chord. As we look at first inversion triads, you'll notice that the symbols have all remained the same, with a slash and a letter on the right side of the chord. The letter indicating the note that is to be played in the bass, and as you can see in the realization on the chart, it has the third in the bass, which is first inversion triads. So a first inversion triad is going to include the chord name with the slash, and then the third of the chord listed on the right side of the slash. In much the same way as the first inversion triads, the second inversion triads will use the same chordal symbol, and there will be a slash, and the fifth of the chord will be included on the right side of the slash, indicating that the fifth is the lowest tone of the chord, which indicates that it's the second inversion triad. So now let's look at seventh chords. The symbols used for seventh chords in lead sheet notation are a bit more complex than the triads. We're only going to look at root position chords today in this lesson. I've included the 5 varieties of seventh chords that will be encountered, and the one that bears mentioning the most is the C half diminished seventh. In most jazz charts, you're going to find that one notated as a C minor 7 flat 5. So I want to move now into looking at 2 excerpts from lead sheets. We're going to use a phrase from the hymn Amazing Grace and a phrase from the jazz standard All the Things You Are. And I want to realize both of those excerpts, one from the piano perspective and one from a guitarist perspective. First, let's see how we would realize the last 4 bars of Amazing Grace on piano. An accompaniment version might go like this. Or maybe we add the melody. For our second example, let's look at the last 8 bars of the jazz standard All the Things You Are and see how the lead sheet could help an improviser to be able to play an arpeggiated line over the changes. I hope you found this introductory video to lead sheet notation helpful to better understanding the symbols used in lead sheets in popular music of today. In the description below is a link to the PDF that has the common lead sheet symbols that I referenced earlier in the video. Thank you so much for watching.